doesn't solve the humanitarian aspect of this crisis. It doesn't. More drones won't solve it. More Border Patrol agents won't solve it. People are still suffering in these countries that are in our neighborhood, our neighbors, Mr. Secretary. The question becomes, what do we do? This is your watch.
Right.
Now, you may not have the answer today, you're new on the job, but we will visit again, and we'll revisit the question. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. Chair yields 5 minutes to the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Guest.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, first, I would like to thank the men and women that you serve with for your professionalism, for your dedication, and your hard work under extremely difficult circumstances. I would like to apologize to you today for the inaction of the United States Congress. The administration, your predecessor, for the last year has been warning us of the looming crisis that exists along our southwest border. You testified earlier today that we had a security crisis, that we had a humanitarian crisis. It's previously been testified that we have a drug trafficking crisis, a human trafficking crisis, and an immigration crisis. I believe you used the words such as dire and unprecedented in explaining what we're seeing along the border. In March, I believe there was 103 illegal immigrants which were apprehended along our border, and then in April, that number rose to 109. And so instead of Congress helping you deal with the crisis, what we've seen today in this very hearing is a member of Congress make allegations that you and the men and women that you serve with have intentionally allowed children to die in your custody. And I want to apologize to you and the men and women that you serve with for these untrue remarks. My question to you, Mr. Secretary, is do you, as we sit today, do you currently have the personnel that you need to deal with this crisis?
No, we don't.
As we sit today, do you currently have the facilities that are needed to deal with the crisis along our southwest border?
No.
Mr. Secretary, do we currently have the number of immigration judges and court officials to manage the crisis along our border?
No, and we've asked for support in all those areas, Congressman.
And Mr. Secretary, let me ask you, have we as a Congress, have we approved the supplemental funding request to address the crisis along our border?
Not yet. We're eager to have that come forward.
And let me ask you another question, Mr. Secretary. Are our current immigration and asylum laws, are they making the crisis along our border better or worse?
Yeah, the fundamental driver is the pull factor. It's our immigration laws and the vulnerabilities for families, children, and for exploitation of our asylum process.
And so I would assume that your answer is that our current asylum laws are making the crisis worse. Is that correct?
Correct.
And so we as Congress, we have not provided you the resources you need for personnel. We've not provided you the facilities that we need. We've not provided you the court officials that you need. And we've not approved the supplemental funding request that you've asked for. And the laws that Congress has in place today are currently making the situation along our southwest border worse instead of better. Is that correct?
That's all correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. Chair recognizes